Hey everybody, it's Doom here from Dungeons and Doom Biscuit. I'm going to paint the new DungeonSwag female archer that's in that first box set. And I'm calling her Elara Windsong. And she's essentially a noble that is so far down the line of succession that she has chosen to go into military service and become one of the rangers that patrols the borders of the Elven Kingdom. I started recording and had already done the flesh tone. So I'm going to switch up and start doing greens. I forgot to turn my camera angle, so it wasn't going to work for watching a video sideways. So hopefully this fixes the problem. So my brush is damp. I have this Absolution green, and it's a darker I think it looks really good. Looks real good. I do like it. I like it a lot. I might ultimately end up doing her cloak in that too. I wish she had a hood now. I like that so much. Now there's a little like leather buckle or leather strap with a buckle on her leg. I'm just going to paint that over for now, and if I decide to come back and get that later, I'll come back and get that later with a brown or something to show it's different. But that's not my priority. Now this cloak is real thin, but it hasn't snapped or anything, and I'm able to bend it. But I'm having trouble getting back into her leg back there, but I guess I can't really see it very well unless I hold the miniature upside down at a weird angle. Like that. Alright, I'm going to rinse out my brush. I'm going to do her tunic next. Let me look at my green choices. Where's the Absolution green? I'm going to put that away. Alright, greens, greens, greens. This is called Camo Cloak. Let's take a look at this. It's going to have to go on the shaker. I haven't used this in like a year. I really want to... I'm worried I didn't get in her crotch good enough. It's hard to see. So I'm just going to come back in and try to tap that again real quick. That was not appropriate. I was not tapping her crotch. I'm a little slow on the uptake some days. So the camo green is a little more like an olive drabby, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I haven't used it in a long time. Yeah, it's definitely more of a subdued green. Muted or whatever. It looks good though. It's going to work for what I want. So not much of her tunic is exposed because a lot of it's behind her cloak there, and it's got a bunch of buckles and pouches and stuff. We're going to come up here and avoid the gloves and get the arms outside of the gloves and that. Okay. Make sure I get up under her breasticle and armpit. You can see that's definitely a more subdued color. I think it looks alright. Better get back here on her underside of her arm. Alright. So the pants have had time to kind of set. So I'm going to do the boots. And I'm going to use warrior skin for the boots. Even though it's meant to be a flesh tone, I think it looks really good as like a beaten and worn leather. And I'm probably going to use this on the gloves too, just for simplicity reasons, honestly. Now, if wet speed paint comes into wet speed paint, they bleed into each other. It's just an unfortunate side effect of the product. You should let one completely dry before you come on and add your next color. I didn't do that, so I'm risking touching them together and getting a bad bleed. Okay, something like that, and I think I'm going to use it on the gloves too. They're probably manufactured by the same standard as the boot for the Elven Imperial Rangers. Alright, get back in that little cranny. I don't know if it's a nook or a cranny. I saw a commercial about nooks and cranny, and apparently someone explained it, but I didn't pay attention enough to learn. Now, I just washed out my brush, but I was just thinking, this significantly large pouch on her side, I'm going to hit that and that too. But my brush is a little bit wetter, so it's getting in there and it's thinner and cleaner and clearer. There we go. So she has some scrolls on her belt, hair, quiver. We're going to hit her with the air gun real quick, and we're going to do the hair. Now, she's a high elf, or a Sylvanesti, or whatever you would call it in your system, or whatever game you play. They're called elves in my world. So, her hair is going to be a light color, a light brown, or a blonde, or a red, like an autumn red. Her hair might change colors with the seasons a little bit. I think I'm going to use a yellow. I have this Zealot yellow, and it's a little obnoxious, but I'm going to show you how I fix that. I use pallid bone over it after it dries, and it makes it less. Though I don't dislike the way it looks on this, honestly. It's a little too bright and vivid for my tastes, but at the same time, against that green, it's not bad. Yeah, I think it's going to be too bright. No problem. I don't hate it. Don't love it. Alright, so I'm going to do her belts and stuff now, and I'm probably just going to use one color for that if I'm going to be honest. Let me see, I got like a hard leather here, I got a satchel brown. Let's do the satchel brown. I may need to shake this up. I can't remember when I used it last. I think this little strap coming down across her chest, this little bandolier, I think it's dry enough that I can tap it with this brown too. Just being super careful. Okay. That little strap there. And then I'm going to try to hit that strap on her leg carefully. And then, what arm had that? This arm has a little, like, bangle thing here. I'm going to make that just like it's a piece of armor. I'm just going to paint it brown. Okay, something like that. We'll do the bow too while we're here. And that'll give a strong enough contrast on the hands, you know, they're gloved with the lighter warrior color. Okay. Now for the cloak, I'd really like to do, actually I want to do the quiver in that dark brown too, I apologize. Actually the quiver might look better in the warrior flesh, the warrior skin or whatever it's called. Let's do that in that darker, or that lighter. Pull some of that off. Seems a little bit thick. Okay. Now for the cloak, we're going to have to use some hot air here to get her. For the cloak, I'd like to use a brownish color, but I don't know what brownish color I have that would work. So I'm going to try this orc skin. Do I have a 2.0 of orc skin? I don't think so. No. Not. Oh, what about this malignant green? This malignant green is like a lighter, more like the Cloaks of Elvenkind, or whatever they were that they gave him in Lord of the Rings. Maybe the inside of the cloak we'll do in dark and the outside we'll do in light. So like it mimics that it's reversible. Okay, I think we got it stirred up pretty good. Okay. It's very thin, and I don't know if I mixed it up well enough. feel like I may not have, because this is not the same consistency as some of the other speed paints, and I don't know if I've ever opened this. I'm just pulling off some of that excess where it looks like it's going to pull up and be too light. Then I'm going to come back and do it again after I kind of hit it with some hot air. Or hot air. See if I like how that looks. I am going to leave that. I do like it that way. I didn't think I would. I'm going to do my little where's the pallid bone at? Come on, pallid bone, where you at? Blah, 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 blah. A little bit of pallid bone on my scrolls. And honestly, with the pallid bone on the scrolls, using some speed paint medium to thin this out a little bit is probably a better and bolder move to make them look more like a parchment. But what I'm doing is I'm hitting the entire thing in this. I'm also hitting my arrows, the shafts of the arrows in this, but with a little thicker. Okay, just like that. Dry off the scrolls a little bit. I'm going to get that warrior flesh or warrior skin or whatever it's called and finish that strap across those. That was the wrong color, wasn't it? Get this darker color and drag that across those scrolls to show that they're connected to that belt. Then I'm going to drag this across the tops of the scrolls real quick. Just like that. Now for the arrows, the tips, the fletchings on the arrows, what I'm going to do is instead of using a speed paint, I'm just going to get a little bit of regular Dragon Red here from my Army Painter stuff. This is all Army Painter stuff. I'm not paid by Army Painter. I bought this stuff with my own money and I like it. So what I'm doing here is I'm wiping a lot of that off of a damp brush. And I'm just going to come about halfway down the feather, the fletching. And I'm going to drag it through the tip, the tip through there a little bit and just catch some of it as red. And that way, if you see like a foe or a dead animal on the forest floor, that bright red will stand out against your background and you can find your arrow. In case the animal was hard to find or your target was hard to find. Now for my base, I'm not using Army Painter because I'm not going to use expensive paintings on the base. Because the base is not what everybody's staring at. I see a lot of people go really into their bases. Look, the way I do my bases is this. I put down super glue, I put down baking soda, and then when I paint it brown, and then I dry brush it or dab it up a little bit with a lighter brown. I put a little grass on there, and I call it a win. I don't go like all into this shit. I don't have all day to be fucking with these bases, you know what I'm saying? And I'm just grabbing a brush here, getting my brush wet. Oops. One of the things that really like makes the bases look decent, and I say decent, not amazing, is when you have some variation in elevation from the way the glue and the baking soda settled, creating that little bit of like where the ground's not perfectly smooth. And on small minis it really doesn't make a big difference, but like on this one I just happened to notice that it stuck out nice and I liked the way it looked. You guys can really see that variation in the elevation there. If I dry brush it, you'll see. Let me get a chunk of cardboard here. I'm just getting a little bit of this from Walmart too, melted chocolate. And I'm getting a good bit of that off. I'm going to drag it around and create some variation. Looks all right. Then I'm gonna get another brush real quick. I like using this brush for doing around the edge of the base for some reason. Not that it's like any better than any other brush or anything. It's just a brush, but drama. Here we go. And I want thin paint on here, so I'm not making bunch of streaks. I use way too much water, so now I gotta play games with it. There we go. So Elara is a secret racist against dwarves. Even though she's amused by wee folk, or halfling, or gnomes, or whatever you call them. Okay, so in Tomorrow Comes Doom, dwarves are called Durgan. They're not dwarves. And there are no halflings or gnomes. There's like a combined, culturally divided race called wee folk, and some of them are more like gnomes, and some of them are more like halflings, and some of them are just their own thing completely. Some of them have slightly larger heads proportionately, and they're the gnome ones, and some of them have slightly more agile forms, and they're the halfling ones. That's just the way it is. Like, I don't feel the need to have two separate cultures. In Tomorrow Comes Doom, I don't give you a bunch of background cultural lore on what a society or a race is into. I have some very generic statements and some fun role-playing type stuff to add, but I make it to where you can insert them in any kind of story you're already running, or they don't really change too much about it, except they're not called by any kind of official race. And that's just because I don't know how much time people really spend on that stuff in games. Sometimes I have games where characters are very into it, but the majority of that information is not useful when people never care. Brush a little damp again. I just want to get this area a little better down there. All right. So there's Elara Windsong. She is deadly with a bow. She heavily dislikes dwarves. Can't stand any kind of orcs. Doesn't really like the halfling type creatures. She didn't like humans. However, the area that she patrols, coincidentally, borders an area that a human man patrols. A man named Einrich, who she has secretly been rendezvousing with. It started with just threats, idle threats back and forth across the border. And then it started with them sitting down and talking for a few minutes here and there, and then them meeting for lunch every day. And years later, now that he's in his late 20s and she's barely aged, they're in love. So Elara Windsong, who is an elvish royal, has never told him she's a royal, who works as a ranger guarding the borders of the Elven Empire, is in love with a human guard that's on a duty post almost exclusively by himself in the middle of nowhere. Anyways, that's her. I'm gonna do some greenery real quick. To do that, I'm just gonna get clear glue from the Dollar Tree. I'm gonna remove that prophylactic. Grab a toothpick. And make a little weird shape there. And one back here. Grab a little of my fly hawk. Fly hawk. And that's her. Elara Windsong. Her hair's a little bright, but I just kind of like it, so I'm going to leave it. I was going to do like a pallid bone over it and make it more like tan tone, but I think this goldeny works well for this very like mysterious elven ranger that this human man loves. So anyways, I'd like to thank you guys for hanging out with me again. Please like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell icon, leave comments, and I'll see you next time. Bye.